Hey, how's everybody doing today? This is Dr. Joe Martin with the Warrior Mindset Podcast. I got a really good friend of mine, special guest today. His name is Gary Watahira. And he's been a friend of mine. We've been friends, 10, 12?
Got to be more than that.
Got to be more than that now. Gary is been a city employee guy. He's been definitely doing some good government work. He's now retired right now, but he's been doing, I'm going to use the term loosely, and he'll let him get into it, martial arts industry for 30,
oh yeah,
40,
close to
40 years now. As a compete too? Did you compete a little bit on your own?
I did when I was younger.
When you were younger.
I did some karate tournaments.
Yeah, and so mainly now as as an instructor, as a mentor, and whatever. But hey, listen, I'll give you a good quick handshake. Thank you very much for coming on the show today. But with the Warrior Mindset Podcast, what we try to do is, if this is the first time you've been on watching our show, is the fact that we try to kind of delve deep into the guest personalities. So with that warrior mindset, in the sense of what makes, in the show, we'll find out, what makes Gary tick, where he came from, what his upbringing was, schooling, was there any, spinning of the wheels in the gravel before he hit pay dirt in his life? Was he ever, falling into quicksand? Did he ever have, somebody help him pull him out from the bootstraps of things like that? And how he's become successful, and he owns his own gym, martial arts gym right now. And we're going to get into that too. But Gary, from the audience point of view, set us straight on, you originally from Fresno. Give us kind of like a little bit of your history first, and then we'll get into some questions.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Fresno, went to Fresno High, Fresno State, and I worked 30 years at the city of Fresno. What was
your undergrad?
It was business administration with an accounting option.
Which definitely got you into city employment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you, like when you started off as a kid, growing up in Fresno, at Fresno High, correct? Mm-hmm. Were you an athlete back then? Obviously, you're doing all the martial arts for 40 years now. Were you the traditional, athlete?
No, I'm not a good athlete. I'm a better coach. I'm not going to fool anybody. I've seen some great athletes, and I'm not anywhere near. I guess I am that person, those who can do and then those who can't teach. But it's not necessarily a bad thing because if I like the martial arts, so I worked at it. And I had to work very hard to get where I was, but I've made every mistake possible. So when I teach somebody who's struggling with it, it's usually not a problem.
And you just started with a traditional foundation of, was it a taekwondo? Was it a karate? Was it a jiu-jitsu? Where did you first start off yourself?
I started off with traditional Japanese karate. I started out with Greg Dow, and then I went to Sensei Halliburton, and I finally got my black belt from Master Kanazawa from Japan, and it was in Shotokan.
Shotokan. Okay, gotcha. And then what now obviously that's, would you consider, correct me if I'm wrong here, more of a hard style?
Yes.
Yeah. So from the hard style and from the karate, where did you then pick up some of your other techniques? Because we're going to get into it. He does a ton of different type of training, from the hard style, karate to, working hands with boxers and MMA fighters. Where did you transition after? So you did a little bit of competing in the karate when you were a younger kid, but then obviously followed along to get your black belt. Still competing, or mainly just training to get the black belt?
Well, once you get really close to the black belt, you'll learn about anything to get it. Then once I got my black belt, I got to do some reflection about, there's a lot of techniques. And if I really got in a fight, I think I would only use maybe 5 or 6 of these.
Gotcha.
So I started looking at different martial arts. Fortunately, my best friend, Steve, he moved to L.A. and he became a chiropractor, and he started meeting all these great martial artists, and he would have me come down and meet them. So that way I got to try jiu-jitsu, and I tried some savate, and I trained with a Shudo champion, Eric Paulson. He actually met the Gracies when they were still teaching out of their garage.
Wow.
Yeah. And he used to like to do this thing. Like, he was actually training with Hoist back then, and he used to always like say, Hoist, this is my friend Gary. He's the guy that I told you, he said he could kick your... I said, no.
I didn't really say that.
Yeah, I didn't say that. He'd always do that with all these great fighters, so it's funny.
I got a chance to meet Hoist Gracie, and actually, myself as a fellow chiropractor, got to work on hoists, and this is probably close to 20 years ago. He came into town to work with our first responders, the police department, and we have, every city's got, an FBI agent or, things of that nature, some of the extra special people. But he did a presentation and a program, and I have still, to this day, since I've been here in Fresno, worked with a lot of the police department, fire department, strength and conditioning, nutrition, obviously the chiropractic. But I was there as the kind of the medic, as these guys were going through some of the training just in case something happened. And I was introduced to Hoist Gracie and got him adjusted in my office. And it was kind of a cool day for me too, you know what I mean? But did you actually ever meet him yourself?
Yes.
Yeah.
I had, it was really interesting, and I want to put this as a caveat. I am not good at jiu-jitsu. I just happen to be kind of like Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
You're kind of in a place in history by accident. But it was my friend Steve would always meet all these great martial artists, and he introduced me to it, where he actually took me to their house.
No way.
Yeah. And, when I look back at it, it's surreal. So he drives up and he says, oh, yeah, see the older guy reading a paper on the porch? He started this whole thing. So that was Helio Gracie, the founder. And I was fortunate enough, I was able to take some classes from Hickson Gracie.
Wow.
And I met Hoist Gracie also through.
And very unassuming type of guy. The nicest guy, polite, soft-spoken. When I met him, obviously, maybe I'm the doctor or whatever, but 5'10", 5'11", 175 pounds, something like that.
Yeah. And
on a good day.
And they're all like that. They're extremely friendly. I know.
Humble guys.
And a lot of times in UFC, you see a different side, because they're doing the fight thing. But usually, not only them, but most fighters, they're completely different.
Oh yeah.
In person.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting because one of the fighters that we both know really well, Jason Von Flew, and he's been a friend of mine for years. We'll have to get him on here one of these days too. Ultimate Fighter, all that. How many fights did he fight in the UFC? Handful.
Yeah,
right? Handful. But another guy, just the most mild mannered. You'd never know. And Hoist Gracie has that same mindset. He came into my office just unassuming and, hey, man, can you tune me up before I get on a plane? He did the seminar for a couple of days, and I'd been there, as kind of the first aid if anybody needed anything. And he got tuned up, and he just thanked me and then went on his way, And then was that earlier on? Like, was this when you're, out of college? Or was this during the high school, college days?
That was actually, I was working.
Working.
So this is
the city.
Late 80s, early 90s.
Right. So, okay, yeah. So late 20s, somewhere in that range for you.
So I used to drive down, maybe every other weekend to learn as much as I could.
And then from there, were you getting the jiu-jitsu too, along with other techniques along the way? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What do you feel that was your best? Like when you, say, for example, if you said to yourself, if I was going to compete, not taking care of yourself on the street, because there's not just one technique you would ever use in the street, but would you say where is your more affinity towards in the arts?
I feel more comfortable with the striking, and that has a lot to do with Dr. Rodney King, who created the Crazy Monkey system.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to get into this guy.
He created a system that is so elegant in its simplicity. I remember training with him, and a lot of us that trained with him that were martial artists, I think most of the time we look at what he teaches us and we would think, why didn't I think to do it that way? It makes so much sense.
What was his background? Let's mention him again so the audience kind of remembers. They can always look him up.
Okay.
And stuff like that. It was
Dr. Rodney King.
Rodney King.
He created the Crazy Monkey system.
Right.
And it has a blocking system that he didn't really plan it to be, but I guess one of his students went on a safari and saw a couple of monkeys fighting, and they were blocking like he shows how to block. And he said, wow, those crazy monkeys fight like you do. And we have birth of a name.
Yeah. And how long ago was that?
So I started Rodney about 2006.
Yeah, so that was okay. So we were in the small gym at the time.
Yeah,
I think So oh my God, almost 20 years, guys.
Yeah, that's when
we've known each other.
That's when he actually started his system.
Mm.
But he was training a lot of people in South Africa. But then I think that's when he broke out, came to the States.
Yeah, I think because then you were 06 or so. You're coaching by then, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and what was most of the stuff that who were you mainly working with? Are we with the martial artists? Was it jiu-jitsu guys, boxers? Because I know you've worked on all. Where did you start? You know, early on in 06.
Well, you know, I did help with some fighters.
Mm-hmm.
But I really didn't feel that was the lane that I drove in.
Mm-hmm.
So, like Jason Von Fu had asked me to help be like a specialist, or if he had somebody having trouble to do something. I felt most comfortable training other people like myself who were
stand-up mainly?
Stand-up, but they were working.
Right.
You know, and over the years, I developed a way that to teach the martial arts that resonated with people who were working. And it was a way that they felt that they could keep it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because not necessarily all the guys you've worked with. Obviously, this seems like a silly statement, but not everybody is competing that you're training. You know, because it is self-defense. It's not always necessarily competition. You know, along the way. But let's see. So with Jason, his was mainly. I think you were mainly striking with him.
Yes, because Jason's a monster on the ground.
Right. He was a college wrestler, right? Or
I believe so. He did
high school, and
he did some competition wrestling.
Yeah.
But I mainly coached him with his striking.
Right.
Yeah, because he has a great ground game. Has a choke named after him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, did you feel that in his fighting career that some of the handwork really helped him out a lot? Did the striking stuff?
Yes, he's always said that the coaching I did with him really helped him.
Yeah.
It helped him have a better, actually be conscious of defense and conscious of range.
Yeah. Yeah, because he did a couple times get hit, you know. Yeah,
Jason, his early fights, he was all offense.
Yeah. You know, left him wide open at times. Yeah. And he, so after like you kind of like started with the Crazy Monkey, what made you keep with that? Is it because of like, say for example, you're a city employee and, a lot of these people are just regular people. They may go out with their families. They may go out with their friends. They may, this is the time, let's say middle to later 30s. What kind of made you gravitate towards, say, for example, the Crazy Monkey to that style to go, hey, listen, I really enjoy this type of stuff?
Okay, one thing is the simplicity and the way it's structured.
Right.
It makes complete sense to someone who's trained martial arts when you've learned different modalities and you see this modality and you see the way Dr. King teaches it and your brain just goes crazy. Go, wow, why didn't I think of this?
Right.
Now, the other effect it has on is when you bring someone else who has no martial arts background and you start showing them, fundamental Crazy Monkey, their mind doesn't say, I can't do this.
Right.
Because in their mind, a lot of times they're influenced by the cinema.
Yes, exactly.
So they think, Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee. But when I show
flying head kicks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, when I show them the Crazy Monkey, the foundation and how it builds upon, and by the time they leave in the first class, they have tools that actually start working ready after the first class.
Did you, when you were younger, like, growing up in the Central Valley here in Fresno, Clovis area, did you have any issues as a kid? Like, I'm going to get into the martial arts because, I got my butt handed and I was bullied or this and that, or just your own personal interest from TV or like you said, the cinema? Like, where did you first start off, as a kid getting interested in some of this?
Well, growing up, there was some bullying because when you think I was probably one of the first generations that, came out of World War II. My parents, my grandparents were in internment camps. It wasn't that bad, though. I mean, to me, it was kind of bad because I was experiencing it. But then when I see some of the bullying that goes on now, it wasn't nearly as bad as it is now. I've always
Could you handle yourself back then, you think? I mean, scrappy dude?
No.
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 Okay, folks, that's what we call honesty. We'll have some people on the show. Yeah, man, I was kicking these guys' ass when I was about 10 years old. So Gary comes on. Nah, I probably got my butt handed to me a couple times.
Yeah, luckily I can be funny, and that kind of offsets, so I don't have to fight too much.
Yeah,
when you can make somebody laugh, they don't want to beat you up.
Yeah, at least as much, right? Yeah. So you not a lot of skirmishes and things like that in high school.
No,
You know, and the typical what we all get. You know what I mean?
no, I
As a
didn't
kid.
have that, but I did know that I had an internal insecurity that I felt that martial arts could help.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So explain that, because it's not necessarily fighting, and which a lot of people don't understand. You know, from an internal point, you know, of who you are, because martial arts doesn't just teach you, and you see it on many, many movies along the way. It's not about the fighting. It's about, you know, the mindset, and then you get, and are you a firm believer in that yourself?
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe explain a little bit of that, because a lot of people out there just think, oh, I want to be an MMA fighter. But even those guys, when they go to those dojos, the masters, they still teach them discipline, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then so where did you kind of feel that put you in there from the fighting point of view, the total, you know, Mr. Miyagi, you know, mentality, or somewhere in the middle?
I was somewhere in the middle. I think when I was younger, it was more toward the fighting. Yeah, I wanted to learn the fighting. A lot of what I realized as far as the internal part, I kind of had to reverse or look in the past to self-reflect. And I realized the most important thing I got out of the martial arts were two things that I didn't realize I was going to get. One was self-acceptance, that I was able to accept myself, and I didn't. When you have martial arts in your background, you're less likely to buckle to peer pressure.
Yes.
You know, whether it's, you know, drinking something or taking some type of drug. And if you don't want to, you have a lot of intestinal for not to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and the other thing I learned actually through Crazy Monkey, what martial arts taught me, is how to deal with chaos. You know, because a lot of times if you just go with traditional school learning, it's about
A one-on-one type of thing.
It's if you know A equals B equals C. But in martial arts, you learn to deal with chaos, because if you're working with a non-cooperative opponent,
right,
you're dealing with chaos.
Or 2-on-1.
So yeah, there could be all different types of variables that come out. One thing I realized about the importance of the chaos is I don't you know, I didn't play high school sports.
Yeah.
I wasn't good, but I often think that with high school kids, there's going to be so few of them that are going to go to a college and play.
Oh, yeah.
And then even fewer of those are going to go to the NFL.
Right.
So I think at a high school level, it'd be really important for them to understand that every play you're learning to deal with chaos. There's never a play that unfolds the same way. And to present that to them, to say, you're not just here playing football, basketball, or baseball. Your mind is actually learning to deal with chaos. And that's one of the big benefits I felt I got from martial arts.
But, and I think, you know, that it's a really good point, because, you know, we've all heard the term, whether it's in your life, in your business, whatever, organized chaos. So I think, would you agree, and, you know, you said you played a little bit of sports, but not much. I think we will both possibly agree that martial art gives you that organizational skills during chaos.
Yes, it does. It makes you not be afraid. You know, I used to give it metaphorical, like something would happen at work. I'd say, okay, I got hit, made a mistake.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
But I'm not knocked out. So what am I going to do next? A lot of people, when something goes wrong, they crumble. Oh, this is horrible. What are we going to do? Or I would think of it metaphorically. Okay, I got hit.
And that's like, you know, the whole premise of this podcast too. It's called the warrior mindset. You know, and you know, you yourself can consider yourself a warrior from a martial arts point of view. You know, people would kind of label that, if you will, a former military. You know, was fortunate to be in the SEAL team, that warrior mindset. But really, I don't take it with that, because the day we're born, we're fighting a war. You know, when the birthing process in itself is a war that we counter fighting against to make sure we struggle to get out into this earth. And then from a daily basis, you know, we're strapping on that armor. But what happens is, I think in the martial arts industry that you're in, is that you teach people that when there's a chink in the armor, you know, you get hit, you know, by something, you don't just crumble. You go, okay, I'm going to just shake that off, you know, and I'm going to get back in the saddle again, and I'm going to, you know, persevere. Do you feel over the years with the martial arts and the stuff that you've been doing, when there has been some of those times when stress has gotten you, and you've been with the city for, you know, forever, and retired out of there, correct?
Yes.
Out of the city. And accounting, business, in the business department?
Well, I did a lot of different jobs. I was a kind of utility player.
Utility player.
Yeah, and I kind of joke.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because they thought I was a great manager or if I was the hot potato. You just move them
just
over
move
here.
them over. Yeah, but it was all in the a lot of number type of game, or was it planning? Was it
both the number type of game and
yeah.
general management?
So with that, that's where some of that organized chaos comes in. And correct me if I'm wrong, that you'd pull yourself back. It's like when there's a situation that occurs, there's many moving parts. You're able to, again, correct me if I'm wrong, you're able to step back with having the martial art background and the teaching and being an instructor, where you can step back, assess the situation, and then move forward, correct?
Right. It makes your mind keep looking for the solution.
Yeah.
So many times something happens, and I figure if there's a few seconds left on the clock,
yeah,
you keep trying to figure out a solution. Right. And sometimes I got to run this brain really fast. Mm-hmm. But I didn't give up. So a lot of times something would happen that would be really difficult. But the
background and foundation that you had.
I would keep driving to find that solution.
Arts. Yeah. And we use the term all the time, when I was in the SEAL team, the only easy day was yesterday, because each day is going to bring on its own problems along the way. So if you worry about today and all the problems going on, do the best you can today, because when the day ends, you're going to be able to regroup and come back tomorrow and either address the things that you weren't able to address, or you've completed it and now you're on to the next challenges. Where some people just kind of in the white water of the waves, they're just getting tumbled around. They just don't understand sometimes. All you got to do is stand up, and the sand is right there, and you stand up and you're at waist level. When you think you're getting all this turmoil, but dude, just stand up. You know what I mean? And I think, from your background with the martial arts, and I think with the people that I've known that you've trained, I think that the individuals that you have trained have had a really good foundation in their lives and what you've seen them move into their futures. You know what I mean? Do you feel that the guys that you've trained, as you've watched them along the way in their fighting careers, that you go, yeah, I had a piece of that? Do you feel that way with a lot of the fighters you've trained?
I do. We've had, I had some success with some amateur fighters in town. Mm-hmm. With one fighter, we'd actually won a local title. Mm-hmm. That was fun. But the most satisfaction I get is from the ones I've been training who graduated from college, and they will tell me something I taught them in training, how they
got out of a situation.
Well, actually, no, how they use it at work.
In what way? Explain that.
Well, I would always tell them, you're always trying to do your best and always exceed expectations, mm-hmm. Whether it's martial arts or work. So one of my longtime students, James, said that he was given this assignment, and it was to collect some data and write it onto a clipboard,
right.
sheet. And he said, right then I thought about, what would you do? You always say exceed expectations. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, I could put it in a spreadsheet and I can make some graphs. And he took this one assignment, which is somewhat mundane, took it out three steps more. And his supervisor was very impressed by that. But a lot of my students now, they come to me with management problems. Mm-hmm. And I help them solve it, but I also do it within kind of the structure of Crazy Monkey, a lot of the foundation that was laid there, and I can kind of make a metaphorical comparison to what they're doing.
That's interesting to say, because a lot of times, you talk to a lot of coaches that, like yourself, that are coaching the athletes, and the first they'll do is in which you've had some success and accolades with some of your athletes, but it's kind of a eye-opening experience that, and this is one of the things we talked about before. You have a martial arts that's very hardcore. In the sense, we're talking about training, fighting. But then there's that philosophical aspect that are tools for the rest of your life. And there's this management situation. There's one of your students that gets in and he says, okay, well, how would we address this from a Crazy Monkey technique point of view or martial art point of view, to where what was the philosophical aspects of training? And I would probably venture to guess, say, for example, non-competitors, people that you teach within the martial art industry, what is the percentage of people ever getting into a confrontation? Pretty small, correct?
Yeah, it's pretty small.
But it's kind of awesome to see when somebody comes to you from a philosophical aspect of the two entities, right? A yin and yang point of view, the fighting point of view or the philosophical point of view, where most of these guys are using the work that you're teaching them to solve issues in activities of daily living.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know?
I get a lot of personal satisfaction for that
Mm-hmm.
because I had to connect the dots myself with work, because I always talk about work-life balance. Like when I first got my full-time job, all I can think of is, wow, this full-time job is really cutting into my karate practice. But then I started learning, well, some of the karate stuff actually helps me at work, you know? So I started thinking of the things that stack in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I took Crazy Monkey with Dr. King, it really started connecting up about how his principles helped me at work too. And I've been using that and teaching my other students.
Was he? What was his background before he kind of innovated the Crazy Monkey type of technique?
He was a hardcore martial artist. He's trained in Thailand with a legendary fighter. I can't remember his name at this point. He was a bouncer at a nightclub in South Africa. So you can imagine, got a lot of flight time there.
A lot of flight time.
And he was probably one of the pioneers of mixed martial arts in South Africa. You know, really well known.
Was he did do like jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai,
yes.
kickboxing, all that type of stuff?
Yes,
gotcha.
He's also, I think, a 4th degree black belt in jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Along with great striking skills.
A PhD?
He is a PhD. Yeah.
PhD. What's his? Remember his background?
It's in, I think it's some type of leadership training.
Oh, check. Gotcha. Yeah. But he'd been doing the martial art type stuff since he was a young guy too?
Yeah. So I think he went into the military and then continued.
Down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then continued to train.
Hone his skills as he was going through college.
And the birth of Crazy Monkey, where this whole methodology came through, is there's a point where there were more working people starting to make their way into the fight gyms. Mm-hmm. And he just sat and thought of it about, okay, other guys, coming here, they want to be fighters. They're here 5 nights a week. This guy has a family, comes twice a week. So how can I teach them to get as good as possible and twice a week? Right. And that's where he came with all the foundational Crazy Monkey. Yes. Yeah. And the techniques, but also I think the methodology and the sequencing was really important in what he did.
And so when you attended a lot of his, you would bring that back here.
Yes.
And kind of implement that. When did you tell yourself, okay, well, listen, I'm going to be kind of a satellite training facility, stuff like that? Did you get certified through him?
Yeah, well, I was sold the first time. I at first
I was sold at the first time.
Yeah, the first time
this is me.
It was like really serendipitous because I was reading about his things, and then I looked online, and it was probably about in 2 weeks he was going to be in LA. I caught it just in time.
Right. And was this kind of at his beginning stage too? With the Crazy Monkey, like incorporating or introducing this program, or you had
to the United States? To
the United States.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're one of the first guys that kind of went through some of the program?
Yeah, when he came to the United States. Luckily, it was completely luck that I got in pretty early with him. But he leaves an impression with you. The first time you trained with him, I remember, because I always believed martial arts was for fun. Mm-hmm. So he opened up the seminar, he says, and he would ask people, who's been in a street fight in the last week?
In the last week?
Month. 2 months. So he goes out almost like several years before somebody finally raises their hand. He goes, so let's be clear on something. Nobody's getting in a street fight. So we're here to learn and we're here to have fun. And there's always one guy that shows up that wants to prove something. If there is that guy, I will knock you out and give your money back.
See, and that's really interesting you say that, because I think a lot of, dojo studios out there have that mentality that everybody's gonna fight. Mm-hmm. But that's so true. That's not true. And there's some really good gyms in town here that are not like that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That they're kid oriented, get the kids in athletics and things like that. They may be a little bit goofy for baseball or football or whatever the case may be, and just getting physical and being able to tighten up some muscles and roll kids around or throw some punches and things like that. That it just gives the kids, like you said, a good foundation. And I think it's interesting with Dr. King that he he saw that 20 years ago, you know what I mean? And kind of put that into motion to where people on a daily basis can just come in, have some fun. But if the proverbial shit hits the fan, he or she hopefully will be confident enough to back somebody off to where that individual would go, oh man, I'm the wrong person. I'm going to keep walking.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
So the important thing is that it's functional.
Yeah.
So one thing I always say is that, depending on your level or, your ability, I will scale it. I'll scale the instruction, but I will never water it down.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that in some cases there have been some modalities that really water down the arts, because, like aerobic kickboxing.
We talked about this. Yeah.
It doesn't
explain that. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense from an energy expenditure because they try to keep your heart rate at a certain amount. So you might end up throwing 100 jabs. So I guarantee after 10, the quality of the jab is going to go down
the toilet.
But if you watch any type of fight, it's an explosion of relaxation.
Right.
Tying aerobics to kickboxing doesn't make sense. That's why I call my. Oh.
Did we talk about this? We talked about this not too long ago. Just the fact, was it maybe 90s? Taibo? Was it?
Taibo.
Yeah.
It
kind of like aerobics. It's really not a fighting technique, correct?
No, I had no problem with it if people are having fun with it. And actually, then the martial artist who started that, he's amazing.
Yeah.
I remember him back in the 80s doing jump spinning hook kicks and hitting the basketball net.
Jeez.
Yeah, that guy is really good.
But the average soccer mom or executive dad is not going to be doing that.
No. And if you're doing Taibo for fun, that's great.
Yeah, because aerobic exercise.
I just didn't like it when I was watching one of their infomercials when a lady said, I feel like I could defend myself. That's a little bit negligent.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as far as the guy who started, he's amazing. If it looks like
and
it's
it became
fun.
Commercial. And hey, listen, God bless them for getting your pennies. Listen, don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about a technique point of view and somebody who's going to possibly be able to, if there's a confrontation that comes up, that individual can think to themselves, I could handle myself, but they're doing something that's more aerobic based.
Mm-hmm.
You would say to yourself or to them, we could probably fix that a little bit better. Yeah, exactly. And so most of your programs are like half hours?
Yeah, I go for individuals a half hour if it's a private lesson. Even my classes run maybe 40 minutes, 45 minutes. I kind of gauge it. There's a point where you could see people are,
diminishing returns.
Yeah, and I can kind of feel when that's happening.
Well, I liked your concept when you were talking about, and we'll just use the word aerobic type of concept, to where if there's something going on in the street, you're not going to be able to throw 100 of anything because something's going to happen before anybody gets to 100 of anything, whether it's a kick or it's a punch or whatever. But I like your approach to where you're like, listen, let me teach you the technique, because if the technique gets there perfectly, the power, it's physics.
Mm-hmm.
The power is going to be there, and you're not going to have to throw 100, hopefully. You know what I mean? Or whatever.
Yeah, well, that's where I don't like what I call self-defense by the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
What do
you mean by that?
Well, they say, somebody grabs you like this, and then they give you a series of moves.
Oh.
That's
a really good point.
What I tell people is I teach you real fighting techniques.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to learn a jab, a cross, an elbow, a knee, a kick. How are you going to use them? I don't know. It's going to be different. Every self-preservation situation is different. I just got to give you the tools.
Right.
You're going to have to work with them.
That's a really good point, because in boxing, it's a dance. Both of the fighters are very, very good at what they do, right? And there's a dance, right? Counter, offense, defense. In a street fight, it's not like that, right? You would say it's not evenly yoked. Two fighters, even though one can be better than the other, and at any given point, somebody's going to get knocked out. But I don't think most fights are evenly yoked. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't have any personal experience. I've never actually been in a street fight, so I always tell, and I'm always upfront with it. So
Yeah.
I'm teaching you the lessons. I've sparred a lot of good people.
Oh yeah, I've seen that like firsthand.
But I've sparred enough good people to know that I'm not that good.
Yeah,
but
it seems because in my military career I had a handful, but it would make sense to me that if you have a little bit of technique and a little bit of muscle memory, for doing some of your techniques over and over again, it becomes muscle memory. Somebody has a throw automatically, you see it coming, you're going to do some sort of a block or a counter. That I think if it is unevenly yoked, the one that's prepared a little bit more, because I think sometimes a street type of bully person, usually the bad guys are not getting technique critiques on their fighting. Where an individual defending themselves, if they're taught correctly, is probably going to have an upper hand, usually.
Well, the one observation I made, there was a show on, and I couldn't watch it very often because it was very painful to watch. It was called I Survived.
Okay.
And about these women who went through these horrible, horrible experiences, and they survived. And the one thing I learned about it was just their will. They willed themselves. To
not physically and mentally surrender.
To not give up. And these women did not look like female mixed martial arts.
Right.
They looked like an average person. And they endured a horrible thing and survived. So one thing, with what I teach with if they actually, the women I teach, they actually get in a fight. It's okay, you have these tools. And I actually posed a question to them, like one of them who hadn't trained that long. I said, if her and I get really into a fight, under what circumstances does she win? And so I'll give you one. I said, here's one we all know, that there was a grandma that picked up a car off her grandkid.
Yeah.
Well, if she summons that kind of strength, I lose.
Right.
What if she decides that I'm going to fight and she attacks me with a ferocity that I'm not prepared for? She can win. What if she decides that I'm going to keep fighting until I'm dead? And she does. And, a couple of guys show up and say, what is that guy doing?
Right.
And they get involved and they stomp the guy. She wins.
Right. She wins.
But the reason I bring that up is because I want them to have these things in their mind. That if this happens,
these are the tools.
And there are circumstances, don't think it's lost. It's almost like at work, where something bad happens, you keep going. Well, even this is more critical.
Yeah. Technically life or death.
You make that you make that decision that I'm surviving.
Right. And that's why I think, and that's a great point from you yourself as an instructor. And I've had a couple of people, on the show as martial artists, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, et cetera, boxers, that I like the fact that some of the things that you're reiterating, and we're going to call those more civilians, if you will, they aren't the competitors, but that survivor mechanism within martial arts, you got to come within yourself, to kind of pull inside, knowing that you have that, that, like you said, ferocity to survive. And then on top of that, what you've also taught some techniques to fend off somebody that's going to attack you. I think that's where sometimes, like you said, some of the martial arts does miss the mark, where it's just attack, and it's just a competitive mindset, and there's no philosophical, or not as much philosophical, compared to I think what you're doing with Crazy Monkey.
It's Dr. King always makes a joke about some of these guys who teach self-preservation, and you watch the video, and they look like Jason Bourne. Yeah. But it's all choreographed.
Yes.
And real fighting is a little bit messy.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
It doesn't look that clean.
Yeah, it's not all just punches and kicks. I mean, there's for self-preservation, you're doing things that you normally wouldn't do in a stand-up boxing match.
There's a lot of ad-libbing.
Ad-libbing and just no holes barred, if you will, on that type of stuff. With the Crazy Monkey, what kept you, because you obviously had a JOB for 20 plus years. what kept you involved with the martial arts in your mind? Like, what kept you kind of tied into, the Crazy Monkey program?
Well, I always loved martial arts, so I wanted to stay involved. I really loved about Crazy Monkey is that it attracted a lot of other like-minded martial artists. So it was really fun to go to a Crazy Monkey event and spar round after round after round, and nobody's getting hurt.
Yeah,
where you could trust the other person. Nobody's going easy.
Yeah,
but nobody's going to the point where somebody would get hurt.
Right.
And that was a lot of fun. It tended to be less competitive, and that's why I try to bring to my school. I have a crazy old monkey rule, which is sparring is a team sport.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It has to be a team sport, especially with your friends. Like they might say, well, who do you think would win? Well, it's your friends, so does it really matter?
Right.
Or unless you're in a weird dimension where you guys are enemies,
yeah.
Right? You're not going to fight anyway, so you might as well work to get each other better.
One of the things that we talked about, off camera before, is that you're not a big proponent of wearing headgear during, the sparring aspect of it. Kind of explain that. I liked your mentality with that.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit controversial, but we spar with so much control, and we spar from such a place is that we're working with each other as friends. I noticed that when in other gyms when I spar with headgear on, it kind of dehumanized the other person. So I was not looking at John. Yeah, I'm looking at a person with gloves and a blockhead.
Yeah,
and I think the other person,
with the headgear on.
Yeah, and they're looking at the same thing. So I noticed the intensity would pick up. But when we know we're not have headgear on, is so with a lot of my training partners, there is a lot of caution, and I noticed that even my mind when I'm looking across, I'm looking at my friends, so I'm fighting from that perspective.
That's really good, and I mean it's pretty interesting because then you get guys that are trying to work up the ladder, if you will, in the mixed martial arts, or we'll use mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu, mixed martial arts and boxing. Kickboxing, same thing. Because in the competition, there's a lot of trauma that can occur, and I'm in the healthcare field, to the head. And you and I had talked about that as far as always recommending young individuals to go to a sport that could have possibilities of getting hit in the head. Kind of explain like your philosophy with that, because I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah, it says, unless you're going to do it, if that's your only option to make a living, I understand it. And I understand why the competitors have to go to that level, because when they get in that the cage or the ring, they've got to be battle ready. Right. But as far as everybody else, we need to protect the brain. Right. And that's not what we do. It's a lot of times, this is a little bit off topic, but I've always felt that I didn't understand why the son of a great boxer would become a boxer, because dad became a boxer because he had no choice. Right. That's a good point. He had no place to eat. Yep, most likely. And that's going to make you a much different fighter. Now, dad was a success. When they look at the boxer dad, he's a successful fighter. I think he became that so Junior doesn't have to, right. because the father knows firsthand what a tough life that is. Yeah, exactly. So we like to, for what we're doing, and the people I train, we're not going to compete. We're just trying to get better. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess too, I've being in the healthcare field, working with tons of athletes along the way, if I was going to, and I use the term when I talk about diet, nutrition, everything you eat is bad, but there's always the better bad. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's all bad. What's the better bad? But from a martial art point of view, myself, usually I'm recommending jiu-jitsu, more so because there's, world, belts, there's tournaments, there's things like that, but you don't get the head trauma. Now, a guy may get, a choke and things like that in there, and a guy, taps out or doesn't tap out and passes out. That's not as traumatic as, blows to the head. If you would recommend somebody wants to be in that industry and does want to compete a little bit, would jiu-jitsu be probably your
your best bet too?
I think if somebody wants to compete in the martial arts, I think jiu-jitsu is great.
Yeah.
They have come up with a methodology where you actually go 100%.
Yes.
You actually are going 100%. Now, I think, I'm sure in order for nobody to get hurt, everybody backs off on the actual submission.
Right.
But
right,
everything,
like an arm bar. Or,
right, when you get the arm bar,
dislocate it,
right, they're not going to thrust and
Yeah.
break that arm.
Yeah.
But all the scrambling that happens up to that point can be done at 100%.
Right.
So that's why they are so effective as fighters, because they have a very safe environment
to train
to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think the Crazy Monkey, with what you're doing to them, even though there's no competition, with what you're doing with these folks from a self, like a better term, self-defense, trying to think of something fancy when I could just use self-defense, that you have that same premise. Like, listen, we're gonna train and condition and do whatever, but then we also have the safety net, like when you do spar with your friend, there's a level that you not dummy it down, but you bring it down to a level where there's no, possible injuries involved. You know what I mean?
Well, the training has to be fun, because paranoia of a street fight will get you into the training, will get you to the school, but it won't keep you there.
Right.
Because there's a realization I had where I knew I loved the martial arts. If somebody were to tell me, I can guarantee you for the rest of your life, you will not have a physical altercation. Oh. And I would say, I'd still train.
Yeah.
That doesn't change a thing.
Yeah.
And that's the love of the martial arts I want to give people, that when they come, that they enjoy it and they come consistently, because it's not how much, it's how often.
Right.
Because then they will pick up the skills.
And do you think, so with the, is it all, I'm not going to say it's all age group oriented, but do you try to recommend some of the younger folks coming in more often? Is everybody on the kind of the same same timeline? Once a week, twice a week, or like, do you do a 3 times a week for people? Even though your philosophy is, almost sometimes less is more. You know what I mean? Does everybody have a different training regimen?
No, everybody's pretty much on once a week. Especially even the younger people I have, they're very busy. I mean, they've got, school is very challenging, and plus other extracurricular activities. So once a week is plenty. And the reason why I like to advocate the once a week, because it's very doable. For a person who has a lot of things going on, if you go twice a week, it gets exponentially harder.
So explain the harder. Harder with life, most likely?
Yes, harder with life.
Yeah, than the training.
No, the training, they in fact, what I do is I price it for 1 time a week.
Yeah.
But here's what I tell them. Like, you had a bad day at work, you got to hit something, just come in. Just come in. I'm not going to, you don't have to pay for an extra class.
I'll just hold the bag for you and just get your 20 minutes out.
I know that, sometimes they need that. So here's my whole premise is I want to train people in a way that they never say, I used to do martial arts.
Yeah.
Because, I've been doing it for a long time. Probably 90% of the people, throughout history, they used to do martial arts. But if I train everyone, even from the younger ones, I go, look, this is the space that your martial arts occupies. And it has to be fit in with your school and with your job, with your family. And this is its space.
Right.
And if you keep it in its space, you'll never say, I used to practice martial arts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like, you get in with people that just, like I'm the gym guy, and I, starting to work with you also. And I've done jiu-jitsu over the years, but that's a good point, because I said I used to do jiu-jitsu. But then, you get that arm bar and you're trying to adjust patients for the next day, or somebody gets a, heel lock and you're on a freaking crutch for a day or two. I can't do my job. Yeah. So I kind of, relinquished that training point of view. Now I fix all the guys that are broken. But that's why I was intrigued in, obviously getting you on the show. I've been working with you. And I like it just, from a fitness point of view. You have a little bit of confidence that you get back into yourself. We're in that same age group to where, first of all, I can handle myself automatically. But, you get to a point where you want to just be able to fend off somebody to where they may go, oh, this isn't the right guy to bully. and they'll just either go on their way or go bully somebody else. And I think that's a good point where you say to yourself, you will never have the comment of "I once was," you know what I mean? Because you're an always will, because you're going to continue because it's a lifestyle. On the other side of this wall, we have a gym, and you hit the gym too, and I'm in the gym 3, 4, sometimes 5 days a week. It's not like, oh, I used to work out, and I like that philosophy because I use that a lot. But there's never going to be a time frame when I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to work out. And I like that philosophy with the martial arts and the technique that you're teaching with the crazy monkey, in the sense that you can do it. And I was talking to him, Gary, off camera before, to where it's like in the other side of the gym, we have a bag, and it was just kind of like shadowing with the stuff that I'd learned from you a couple of days before. I didn't have any gloves on, but it's just like tapping the bag just to where it's like that 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, whatever the heck the technique that we learned, a couple of days before. And that's what I like about it. And I think the technique for, people that aren't going to be so competitive, that you give it that, hey, once a week, and then when you're on your own, you can just practice, on air or a bag. Do you recommend that a lot to the folks, or do you just kind of say, listen, don't even worry about it till the following week?
Now, a lot of times I will give homework. Yeah, and real light things. And I believe in like short sessions.
Right.
As if you got an extra 10 minutes, then you can do this.
Right.
But because it's so challenging to come up with like a half an hour in a person's day.
Yeah.
But, they could throw a jab cross in the mirror while they're waiting for the shower to get warm.
Exactly. Or in the shower.
Yeah.
See if you can hit the drops of water, grasshopper.
Yeah, without your hand getting wet.
Yeah, that's a new crazy monkey technique, But so that's. I mean, I love the concept with it, and even whether it's obviously people are training crazy monkey, people are learning different techniques, and even out there giving other trainers that are in the martial art industry that almost a shout out to, hey, listen, try this also, because correct me if I'm wrong, because you've trained professional athletes and things like that before. Do you think the majority of dojos and studios and mixed martial art facilities are training the weekend warrior, the soccer mom, the executive dad, the normal, no pun intended, Joe? Are most of those type of people?
I'm not sure. I know that they have them, but a lot of times they're by, like, for example, a professional martial artist that they've been that always. So they have a certain way of teaching. You'll notice that it's usually a 2 to 3 time a week thing, which I understand. Because that's what I came up with. As in instructor. Karate. Yeah, you went 2, 3 nights a week. But then when I had to have a grown-up job, that's why I call Crazy Old Monkey martial arts for grown-ups.
Yeah.
I didn't want to give up, but I had to be realistic. So
would you use? I'll see if I can tie this together here, because you said to us earlier that you're not. People can come to a crazy monkey and not say I used to. Do you think the people that say I used to, or the people that were going too much and then get burnt out and then whatever? But if it's a once a weeker, they're kind of excited about the program?
Well, I think a lot of it is people are very objective oriented.
Right.
So if they sign up for a 3-time-a-week program and they can only start making it 2, they feel like a failure sometimes.
Right. No, great point. Great point.
So if I give it once a week, because I know from experience that's doable, then you hit the mark.
Right.
Help you hit the mark.
Start the expectation here and be proficient at it here. Then if you choose to go up here, you already had the mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you've probably noticed that with people working out. Like, Doc, if you probably train people and say, I want to train 5 days a week, 2 hours a day, right?
Yeah. So, that's a good point.
Okay. But then they can't maintain it, so now they don't want to do it at all.
And then they disappear.
They disappear.
Yeah, 100% agree.
As opposed to setting something that they could do.
Manageable.
They don't have to say, I used to work out.
Right. Right. And I'm gonna steal that from you, that I used to work out, because it's not in my vocabulary. It hasn't been in your vocabulary to this day. As of today, it hasn't been in your vocabulary. Mm-hmm. You and I don't foresee it, coming down in the near future. But that's a great analogy to use to people. And even if they do start off, with 1 day a week doing something, and even if we talk about weight loss programs, it's not even martial arts, to where you go, okay, Johnny, listen, all I want you to do is 1 day a week. I want you to start off with this. Then after you progress to there, I want you to do this much. You know what I mean? And then that's that whole, developmental curve. You know what I mean? Weight loss is a little bit different than working out in the gym and things like that, and obviously the martial arts. But the premise is there. You know what I mean? Start here. Make sure you master it here. So here's a question. If you have somebody that's mastered it with 1 day a week and they're just killing it, you get people that go, hey, man, I want to do, 3 days a week. Do you got to shoot them down a little bit, or kind of do you give them an extra day? Depends.
I would let them try.
Yeah.
But the thing is, because the main thing is there's no shaming for not doing it.
Oh, of course not.
Because sometimes in the martial arts world, if you're not at the school, you almost got to like earn your way back.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that many times.
Sometimes, but that's...
Or you're rolling with one of the bigger boys that day, it gives you a little bit of the business.
Yeah, because you
didn't show
haven't
up.
been there. But I always wanted that there's no stress. Mm-hmm. So one person didn't understand what I mean by this, but my martial arts, I want it to be, I know they always talk about discipline, mm-hmm. but I call it minimal discipline.
Right.
And what that means is, when you're at work and it's not like, oh, God, okay, I'm so tired, I got to go. I committed to go to kickboxing.
Right.
That's not the feeling I want. What I like to hear, and I hear it quite often, is somebody will show up to class and say, man, I had a really bad day at work. I couldn't wait to get here.
Yeah.
So if I create that, okay, I know I'm creating the right environment. And there wasn't like, oh, I'm so lazy if I don't show up.
Right.
And, you hear a lot of hardworking people because they don't work out. And they'll tell me it's because I'm lazy. And I'll say, lazy, really? Don't you have a job? I know you're working a lot of hours.
It's not lazy, huh?
Yeah, you have a mortgage?
Yeah.
Are you putting a couple kids through school? News for you, lazy people don't do that.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a great analogy.
So you're already doing that. So if you want to do something that's an exercise, make sure it's fun. You've burned up all of you've got plenty of discipline. And you
need some fun.
Yeah, you burned it all up. So you have no more discipline to go do something that you don't like.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard. When someone would ask me, what do you think the best martial art is? And, when I was younger, I had an opinion. Happened to be the one I was practicing at the time. But as I got older, I realized the answer is, which one will you go to once, twice a week?
Yeah.
And it doesn't take any discipline.
Do you have your percentage that do you have a couple that are 2 day weekers?
No, everybody's a once a week.
Come in. I mean, I really, now I think from maybe a fitness and cardiovascular and, weight gain, and obviously that probably is not going to happen. But from a martial arts point of view, I kind of like that. And it's like, it's now you've used the term, and, from your business, it's the crazy old monkey, mm-hmm. In there as we're all getting older. But, it really intrigues me. That's why, I'm at his studio right now, learning some of this, is the fact that it makes you feel good. You know what I mean? When you leave, you have that little bit of pep in your step. You got some aggression out, that you may normally not. And I think, do you do like husband wives too? Like, will they? Can you pair up?
Yes, I actually on Saturday I have a whole family that comes in together, and they have a lot of fun. Well,
it seems really good for that because we have in society, and I treat a lot of first responders, police officers, and whatnot, and people that have been detectives, and we talk about at home violences, whether it's with the children or whether it's with the husband, the wife, and whatever. But if you're going to something like this once a week, and it's FUN, mm-hmm. I would guarantee you, if we did some research study on that, the household would be 10 times better. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's any study on that. We should work that out and see what happens. But because then when people get to a point where violence may occur, I think if you learn restraint, you learn commitment, you learn, respect, you learn restraint, and things like that, that I would think that if there's anything that goes on at home from a confrontation point of view, once a week you're at an establishment that talks about those things. Hey, listen, let's refrain from this. We want to pull back a punch. We want to do this type of stuff. We want to have some technique. We want to have some philosophy, that is being taught along the way. I would think that when you have a husband and wife that would come together for this type of activity, there's going to be probably less chance of problems at home.
Yeah, they have a lot of fun. They're not allowed to spar each other, but other than that,
hopefully there's a son for the father and a daughter for the mother.
No, actually, I have a rule that family members don't get to spar each other.
Yeah, I like that.
I've seen it go bad.
Yeah, downhill fast. And they had somebody then. Okay, Bobby, put on the headgear, bro. Yeah. What? No headgear. No, Bobby's putting on a headgear right now. Right, teach him a lesson. But where do you kind of foresee the business? You're kind of semi-retired. Does it flow in the way you like it right now? Is there goals that you have, as a trainer?
Well, I like the formula. So what I like best now is I'm able to explain what it is, because it is a little different.
Yeah.
I came up with the tagline, Crazy Old Monkey Martial Arts for Grown-Ups. And the other thing I always explain is that it's skill building, not exercise.
Right. 100% agree.
And that way,
times I've been there,
they know they don't have to come in stressed that their heart rate's going to go places that they're uncomfortable. But when I gear the whole class to skill building, that's why the once a week works. I mean, it's all about the skill.
Right.
They don't come in and do a bunch of jumping jacks or jumping rope. The whole time is spent on the skill, and it works really, really well. So when I explain it with the martial arts for grown-ups and it's skill building, not exercise, people start understanding, oh, okay, I think that would be fun.
Do you have from because you're obviously athletic and you've been in the martial arts for a long time. Do you recommend to some of your clients along the way, hey Johnny, are you doing anything to increase your heart rate? Are you doing any walking on the weekends? Are you guys husband and wife going to Woodward Park or whatever the case may be, and or you're hitting the gym? Do you recommend them to do things outside of the martial art training?
Yeah, I try to work in, if they're going to do strength and conditioning, do something that's really short. Rather, if you have 10 minutes, drop down and do some push-ups.
Gotcha.
Some of them, I think, do something more formal where they go to the gym.
The gym type of setting.
But main thing is just to get them used to doing something that they can fit in. Because the way the lifestyles we all live, it's so hard to commit.
Hectic.
I mean, you're working more hours and there's more things going on. So I'm trying to find ways that, they do this once a week, maybe get a little bit of practice. And I don't make, it's not mandatory. I have some students, I'm sorry I didn't practice this week. Not a problem.
Yeah. We'll just go right back to,
probably busy.
Yeah. No, that's good. And I think one of the biggest things at your place is the fact that you're teaching to their skills. Somebody may go, hey, listen, I want to do this head kick like I saw on TV. You're like, okay, Bob, but you're like 250 pounds and you can't even, touch your kneecaps. We're going to break you if we try to, say you're going to, roundhouse to the head. I mean, do you give these guys realistic goals also?
Yeah, usually the grown-ups, they don't care. That's not, every now and then I have to pull out of my memory of how to teach from karate, because I don't believe that you tell a person you're not going to learn it, because I know how to. So I have a younger kid said, can you teach me to do a spinning kick? I said, yeah, I can teach you to do a spinning kick. If you're in a situation that you're in trouble, I don't recommend you do this.
Yes, exactly.
But it's good. It's fun, and it's good for building some coordination. But you got to be realistic. You don't want to do the movie. If you're in a situation where you really have to protect yourself, you don't want to do the movie kicks.
Yeah. That's why I really like your concept of, that in that martial art technique where it's like you're protecting the individual, like on the daily, in their daily activities. If they're walking down a mall, they're at a fair or in a busy street or a restaurant or a nightclub, you're not going to get space You know, to go, hold on, Johnny, let me do that spinning, you know, round kick, you know, head kick that you're trying to learn along the way.
Well, a lot of things I teach, when I like to separate fighting from self-defense.
Right.
So when you're learning the fighting techniques, you're fighting.
Gotcha.
And if you're in a situation of self-preservation and you're fighting, everything else went wrong.
Right.
You know, so what I call self-defense is everything that you do to avoid the fight.
Or correct.
And just to be, you know, like if you walk out of Target and you see a bunch of people gathered around your car, you might think, I think I'll wait.
Yeah.
You know, and I have... well,
that's called self-defense.
Yeah, self-defense.
You know, on your own sense, you know, you protecting yourself from going into those situations too.
And my number one rule I always tell the women clients, if it feels creepy, it's creepy.
That's a good point.
It is, because the woman...
Their spidey senses.
Yes, they have very good spidey senses, and there's too many times I've read in a book where the woman will say, you know, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't want to offend somebody, or no. It's
like those old cliches with the horror movies when, you know, you walk into a barn that has, you know, chainsaws and axes and whatever, or you go running out into the you know, cornfield when you know, the chainsaw massacre guy's coming through with the chainsaw, and you're like, oh, let's just run away. Yeah. You know, you avoid situations that you know,
if it feels creepy, it's creepy. And the other main thing is not to look like a victim, because there's a famous study where they took a film of people just walking on the street, and they took career criminals and had them.
They would assess the film.
They would pick which ones they would attack, and they all picked the same people.
Shoulders down, head down,
there's
not aware.
There's a victim vibe. I call it. There's a victim vibe. Don't have the victim vibe, because the career criminals are really good at it. They know how to pick that up.
Well, even from a psychology, sociology point of view, not biomechanics or whatever, but there's studies out there that do show that, you know, when I'll use the term military posture. When the head is up, the shoulders are back, the alignment of the ears over the shoulders, over the hips, over the toes, that posture is very assuredness. That's what the military teach you. You know, you look confident. So if you're going down a road or down a street, or say for example, a busy street, and then these individuals looking at this video, and you saw some guy or some gal that has that pep in the step, that the head's on a swivel, you know what I mean, and things like that, you know, I'm sure those guys would go, nah, we're not going to even mess with her, you know what I mean, because she has that air of confidence. I mean, do you kind of talk about those things too in your classes too, as far as, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Preservation, their mentalities, their, you know, do you think after they're coming in for a while they have that little bit of pep in their step and shoulders back?
Well, you know
after training?
What I think it comes down to is the last thing a criminal wants to be is identified.
Right.
So at bare minimum, you're looking up. And if they approach you aggressively and you look them in the face, and that I think is a deterrent. I think they're looking for victims that aren't in a position where they're going to identify them. You know, if they're texting, you know,
right,
or anything that has them distracted. A person who isn't distracted, you know, will be able to identify you. So
that probably goes back to, within the martial arts, you have your foundation of your philosophy. And you have your foundation in the martial arts of, we'll just use the term techniques. It seems sometimes the foundation of philosophy can go a long way to protect somebody with even a minimum amount of, you know, self-defense. Because their personal awareness that you're teaching in martial arts, then with technique, your personal awareness may avoid it totally. Where if you don't have that personal awareness, then you're going to have to use your technique.
But, you know, if you look at a lot of traditional martial arts, they all have a tradition of meditation.
Right.
And what is the purpose of meditation is to keep your mind present. So,
that's a good point.
And, you know, when you're traveling through the world and you're present, I'm sure you look less like a victim because you're in the moment.
Yeah.
and you're going to notice things,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to be able to identify things. So I think that becomes very important.
That's really, yeah, that's good. And that goes right back to, the more we have this conversation in this podcast, and that warrior mindset mentality, and we're talking about, a mix or a martial art and personal, protection type of thing, it just comes right back to the philosophy again.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? In the sense that, you have that meditation, you have that personal awareness, you have that mindset that, you're confident because you had some technique that you're learning that you could at least get somebody's attention. They're going to be like, oh, it's not a victim. You know what I mean? And most likely that individual is not going to want confrontation. I think there's probably studies out there, the first person, if they get a swing back or one or two times, most likely that guy's going to bail because, like you said, they don't want to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's a really, good point. And it really does come back to, a lot of that philosophical aspect of these foundations of different techniques, in martial arts and things like that.
Well, when it comes to techniques, I like to be realistic
Mm-hmm.
about it. So it's not going to be like clean like in the movie. But at the bare minimum, if you're in a situation, at least you have a toolbox.
Right.
Because if you can imagine yourself in a situation and you have no toolbox, that's really scary.
Right.
It's scary anyway, right? Even if you do have a toolbox,
Mm-hmm.
but if you had nothing,
Right.
at least you can. At least if a person that I've trained gets confronted, they can kind of go through the menu in their mind. Okay, I got a jab, I got a cross,
Right.
I got something.
Right. Yeah, and then being able to, it's kind of interesting if you have a toolbox and it's not organized, it's almost just as worthless as not having any.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is ironic, was because you give them a toolbox, right, which is the program. Within the toolbox, you're going to put tools, which is the cross, the jabs, and the leg work and whatever. But really, I think what goes through to the glue to get things organized is the philosophy. That understanding the philosophy. You can have the toolbox, you can have tools, but if you don't know how to use the tools and you don't know the mindset behind using the tools, it's a worthless box.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's another really, really good point. I like, that analogy is really good, to have the toolbox, having the tools, but then having the education behind somebody who's teaching the martial arts to how to use those tools and when to pull out which one.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You don't pull out a sledgehammer to do finishing work.
Yeah, that whole idea of the toolbox in martial arts, I actually used it as a manager because one of the things is, if you were to ask me in a job interview, what's the most important thing to you as a manager? And the most important thing to me was getting the other people in my division promoted.
Oh, gotcha.
Because it's the same thing with martial arts, it's
like
self-development.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that you can create a strong organization unless you have an environment where people are improving.
Right.
So when I was managing a group, it was really important to me that I'm dropping stuff in their toolbox.
Gotcha. So when they did come up for promotion,
that they'd be ready.
All their boxes would be checked.
That was really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was talking about that one time, and somebody brought up, well, what if you have somebody that doesn't want to do better, that doesn't want to promote? I said, then they're lying. We're all here because some caveman figured out how to survive, right? So
Right.
It's in our DNA to survive and do better,
right?
Or we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think, so from a martial arts standpoint, from a work standpoint, it was always really important that they fill their toolbox. So when the day came that they wanted to promote, that they'd be ready.
And it's funny because, and then you I like the way you coordinate with you got the Crazy Monkey program and, the crazy old monkey, for adults type of a martial arts or self-defense. Then you have the toolbox, and then you talk about, raising people's, their own expectations so they do get promoted. And it's a great, and we'll kind of, close up a little bit with this in the sense that here we have a company, it's a Crazy Old Monkey. We have a guy that's been in the industry for 40 years plus and whatever. your concept is very, the military and the martial arts are very, very similar, right? You're giving people tools in a toolbox, but if they don't know how to use the tools, they're not going to be successful, right? And that's with martial arts or the military, right? And the idea behind it is you as an instructor are trying to get these guys to be the best sharpshooter, the best, bomb expert, the best, whatever the case may be in the military, the martial arts to become as successful as they can. But I really love the fact, and this is where kind of like rubber meets the road, is in life we're always trying to make people better than they are, make people better than their past. And with the military, we use the promotions, and whether they're stripes or bars or whatever the case may be, but their superiors are trying to drag them up to go, listen, Johnny, we're going to get you promoted. We got to do these things. We got to check off the box. We got to use these tools in order to do that. In the martial arts, that tool analogy you're using with your students, but you then brought it into the business world. Mm-hmm. And it's, just kind of cool the way all this kind of works together to where you're telling yourself, listen, I'm the instructor, but I want you to make you better than I ever was. In order to do that, I got to teach you these and I got to give you these tools. So then as you progress as a martial artist, if you will, self-defense, you're also bringing up your employees, to rise above. Have you ever had any employees that you pushed above where you are? Was there ever any level where they moved up to?
Yes. There have been some that since I left, and that I couldn't be more proud.
Yeah.
And it's very touching when I will get a call out of the blue from someone who's called me and says, I'm at a director level at this college now. And I just want to call you because you gave me the confidence to do this. And that happens. It's happened a few times.
Yeah.
That's what makes me the most happy.
Well, and that's awesome because I have this, and we're kind of cut from, and that's one of the things we've been, friends for a while, and we kind of cut from the same cloth is that, our philosophies are to make people better than we are. You know what I mean? And then you've done that, over the years with trying to train people, to compete or to be better people. But if we can make people better than we are in our lives, we're going to leave some sort of thumbprint, on this earth. And I think that should be where everybody's goal is to be, to leave this earth better than it was before we got here. You know what I mean? And even self-preservation and the martial arts and, positive mental attitudes and progressing people in their lives, to become even more successful. That, man, you're doing a great job. But, listen, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I love hearing about the crazy, little old on there now. We're both getting older now. The Crazy Old Monkey program. And we're going to, we'll post stuff on our social media, so if people in the Valley here, they got questions, they can contact you. What we'll do is try to get Frankie, our camera guy, to get maybe some video type stuff. You can send it to us. We'll put it on this podcast for you too, so people get out and see exactly what you do and things of that nature. So, hey, one more time, I'm going to shake your hand. I really appreciate you, you coming by. And this is Dr. Joe Martin with the Warrior Mindset Podcast with Gary Watahira, and we're happy to see him. We look forward to possibly hearing from him in the future. And if you have any questions for him, we'll make sure you get all the information on our website. Have a great day.